Thank you, Madam Chair. So we spent the morning listening to people attack a formula supply chain and described as premature and inefficient recalls that worsen the issue. But when we're talking about sick babies, can we be too cautious? The reporting mechanisms did not work. We must do more to make sure this doesn't happen again. It's beyond regulation. This is a need to protect our most vulnerable population, infants. So we can't allow weak regulations to allow children to die. Dr. Lori, how should infant formula manufacturers have notified us of suspected contamination?
Well, as you know, there's no requirement at present for them to do so. And so, you know, if I were an infant formula manufacturer, at the moment I have a sample that tests positive, my response is not to destroy product and tell nobody. My response is to test more widely. My response is to tell the regulatory agency involved. But that's not what they did.
Thank you. So changing gears, as has been mentioned, infant formula manufacturers played a critical role in keeping babies fed and safe from foodborne illnesses. But when 90% of our supply is provided by 3 manufacturers like Abbott, American consumers lose. It took just one Abbott factory closure to throw this market into disarray. This industry is lacking the competition to maintain a robust market and protect our most vulnerable populations, infants who are being put at risk. Dr. Lori, how can Congress foster competition within the infant formula market to promote safety and accessibility?
Well, I'd just say first that, you know, I worked on drug shortages where when I was at FDA, and it was quite the same problem. When it came to generic injectables, there was a concentrated market, and you had a supply chain that was very, you know, friable, as it were, that, you know, that could break at any moment, and there'd be very few people who could step in. And that's very much what we saw in infant formula. I do want to say one thing, though, about the WIC program, which I think, you know, is not a sole source program. It is a single contractor in each state program. That's different. But as important as it is to look at the WIC program and whatever role it might have played in the concentration of the market, it's also important to remember that the way the contracts are currently constructed is saving this government about $1.6 billion a year. And that, you know, if we have to pay somehow, you know, either this Congress is going to have to come up with $1.6 billion, or there's going to be a $1.6 billion smaller amount of infant formula produced. So we need a solution. I think the Federal Trade Commission should be taking a close look at this, but we should be careful, you know, when we talk about reform at WIC, that we make sure that access to the infant formula is part of the formulation as well.
Thank you. You know, if our Congress is serious about this, we also want to investigate Abbott to get at the heart of what prompted the recalls and shortages. So we must continue to work to diversify our domestic suppliers and increase the resiliency of the infant formula market. Americans can't afford to keep relying on 3 manufacturers to prop up such a vital industry. I yield back.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Mr. Gomez for